Okay, so we move from plot summary to setting. The setting of the work of art refers to the time and place that the work of art is situated. The setting of the work of art refers to the time and place in which the work of art is situated. So two concepts are necessary to the understanding of setting in a novel or in any work of art. The two terms are time and place. If you are asked to discuss the setting of the work of art, you need to talk about the time and the place that the work is located. So setting is the spatio-temporal dimension of the work of art. The spatio-temporal dimension of the work of art. Where spatial means space, place, and temporal refers to time. So when you have been able to account for these two concepts in the work of art, you'll be able to deal with the setting of the work. So maybe we'll start with time. We'll start with time. In terms of time, a work of art could be set in the morning. Work of art could be set in the morning. It could be set in the afternoon. It could be set in the evening. That means you need to tie events to that time of occurrence. What time did the action take place? Or what time does the action take place? Is it in the morning, in the afternoon, evening, twilight, and so on and so forth? The work of art could be set in the present, could be set in the past, it can also be set in the future. The work of art can be set in the present, can be set in the past. The work of art can also be set in the future. Sometimes the novelist can mention a date. Sometimes the novelist can mention a date, so you take note of the date that's mentioned in the novel itself. Sometimes you might use the events being talked about to deduce the temporality of the novel, of the events themselves. For instance, if a work of art depicts the Nigerian Civil War, then the setting is likely to be in the 1960s, 1967 to 1970, thereabout. If the work of art depicts the First World War, then the temporal setting is likely between 1914 and 1918. If the work of art depicts the Second World War, then the temporal setting is likely 1939, between 1939 and 1945. If the work of art depicts slavery, then the temporal setting is likely from the 16th century to the 19th century. If a work of art depicts colonialism, then the temporal setting is likely going to be the 19th century and some part of the 20th century, a good part of the 20th century. Place. The work of art can be set in a rural area, or in an urban area. So the work can have a rural setting, some people might call it pastoral setting, or rustic setting. The work of art can also be set in an urban space, as the city, town, and you could always see the difference, all right, between the two spaces. For instance, in Purple Hibiscus, when Kambili and the parents are visiting the village, you see that life there is different compared to when they're in town, they're in the city, in Enugu. It's also different when they go to Nsukka, the university town. So you pay attention to the place. The work of art can be set on land, can be set in the air. The events can take place in the air. It can also be on the sea. It can be outside the earth. The work of art can be set in outer space, like in Mars, like in Jupiter. So there are many indices to suggest setting in a work of art. There are many indices to suggest setting in a work of art. Even language can infer setting. Even language can infer setting. Somebody speaking, you know that this is not the language of today. Somebody speaks in a novel, no, this novel is set in the Western Nigeria. The type of clothing that people wear can suggest setting. Contemporary characters will wear contemporary clothing. Historical characters will wear clothing or fashion of the past. So you pay attention to this when you are reading a novel, or even when you are writing. You can't depict characters in the 60s and you make them speak contemporary language, wear contemporary fashion. That's not nice. It's not creative at all, or imaginative. There's an aspect of setting that we call atmosphere. There's a third aspect of setting known as atmosphere. It takes into consideration the prevailing mood of the work at a particular time. It accounts for the prevailing mood of the work at a particular time. And then links this mood to the climatic condition. Then links this mood to the climatic condition. And then links this mood to the climatic condition in the novel. In traditional literature, in traditional literary conventions, events are usually tied, the nature of events are usually tied to the nature of the climatic condition. The nature of events are usually tied to the nature of the climate or climatic conditions. For instance, if it rains and there is a storm, there will have thunder and lightning, then it's likely that something tragic will happen. It rains and there is a storm and there's thunder and lightning, then it suggests that something tragic is going to happen. But then when there is sunshine and the breeze blowing and then everyone is happy, it's going to be a happy event. That's what we mean by atmosphere. Okay? So you can also pay attention to this. The next item. The next item. Point of view. You can call it narrative point of view. Narrative viewpoint. It refers to the vantage point from which the writer tells the story. The vantage point from which the narrator tells the story. Vantage point. Literally, it refers to where the writer stands to tell the story, or where the narrator stands to tell the story. It's a vantage point from which the narrator tells the story. The vantage point from which the narrator tells the story. That point of view. So we have the first person narrative point of view, or the first person narrator. We have the first person narrative point of view, or the first person narrator. This is so called because it is taken from the first person pronoun. Taken from the first person pronoun. And this narrator is indicated by the use of the first person pronoun I or we, singular or plural. I or we. So how to know if a work makes use of the first person narrative point of view is to check for the pronoun of the narrator. The narrator says I or says we, then that's first person narrative point of view. So the implication for this narrator is that the narrator is, the implication for this narrative point of view is that the narrator is also one of the characters in the story. The narrator is also one of the characters in the story. The narrator is also one of the characters in the story. The narrator is also a participant in the story. The narrator is involved in the events. And he is telling the story as an eyewitness. So the first person narrative point of view is an eyewitness account, told from the perspective of the person who was there when the event took place. Told from the perspective of the person who was there when the event took place, an eyewitness account. Something happens, we ask, who was there? Who can tell us, what did you see? And the person would begin, I was walking by the road. When I saw this car coming, and I speak. So that is an eyewitness account. And we usually trust an eyewitness account because the person was there and experienced the events. Compared to somebody who tells what somebody else told him or her. So, one of the strong points of the first person narrative point of view is that it is an eyewitness account and it is likely to be believed, likely to be plausible. However, this narrator is subjective. This narrator is subjective. In the sense that at the end of the day, he is merely narrating his view, his personal view, what he believes, or what he believes he saw. So it's subjective. Rather than being objective. An individual telling a story from his or her perspective is likely to be subjective rather than being objective. This is why this narrator is usually accused of lacking objectivity or being biased in favor of himself or his party or his side. The narrator is likely to be biased towards his cause. He will likely tell the story to exonerate himself. He will likely tell the story to acquit himself. He will likely tell the story to make himself look good. He lacks objectivity. The first person narrator lacks objectivity. That's all we're saying. Because he expresses his personal views based on what he saw. He's subjective, not objective. So, the first person narrator is usually accused of being biased towards his cause, towards his party, towards his country, towards his side in the story. Because he will likely tell the story to make himself look good. Second person narrative point of view. Second person narrator. This narrator is rare, but it has been practiced before. The second person narrator is rare, but of course it has been practiced before. The second person narrator is rare, but of course it has been practiced before. It makes use of the second person pronoun you. It makes use of the second person pronoun you. It makes use of the second person pronoun you. Now this pronoun you can go in any of the two directions. Can go in any of the two directions. One, it can refer to the narrator. One, it can refer to the narrator, where the narrator avoids to use I and chooses you for technical distance. To use you for technical distance, for artistic distance, for imaginative distance. It can also refer to another person. It can also refer to another person. So this narrator is quite creative, and I think most people should try to use it more often. Making writers will try to use it often. It can refer to the narrator himself, who avoids to use I and to use you to refer to himself. Alright? And it can refer to another person as well. So the you can mean towards either of the two directions. To explain. Again, this narrator is rare, but it can be practiced. It has been practiced, and it can be practiced. Third person narrator. Third person narrator. Third person narrator. Or third person narrative point of view. Third person narrative point of view. The next use of the third person pronoun, he, she, they, it. Next use of the third person pronoun, he, she, they, it. In this narrative point of view, the narrator is not one of the characters in the story. The narrator is not one of the characters in the story. The narrator is outside the story. The narrator is outside the story. This is why we normally say that the third person narrator is objective rather than subjective. So I would say that the third person narrator is objective because he is not a character in the story, is not one of the characters. It's not in any of the sides to the events, to the conflicts depicted or dramatized in the story. He's likely to tell the story as it is, without bias or without favor. Without bias or without favor. Likely to tell the story as it is, without bias or without favor. Another advantage usually ascribed to the third person narrator is that the narrator is all-knowing. The narrator is all-knowing. Omniscient. The narrator is all-knowing. Omniscient. Narrator is all-knowing. Narrator is omniscient. The narrator is everywhere and knows everything about everyone. So nothing is hidden from this narrator. Compared to the first person narrator who only reports what he sees and does not know motives, does not know anything about motives, except probably through speculation. But the third person narrator knows motives, knows where everyone has been, sees into the heart, sees into the mind and the soul. Wherever the character is, the third person narrator knows, because he's all-knowing and omniscient. So the aspect where the third person narrator is able to access the mind of the character, the aspect where the third person narrator is able to have access to the mind of the character and to tell the story from there, is what gives us another aspect of the third person narrative point of view, our stream of consciousness. Our stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness is an aspect of the third person narrative point of view where the narrator is able to access the character's mind or thought processes and to narrate the story from there, and to tell the story from there. So the stream of consciousness is the narrative point of view whereby the story is told through the proceeds of the mind of the character. Whatever comes out of the character's thoughts or mind is narrated to the audience. So the story is told based on the continuous flow of the character's thought. Story is told based on the continuous flow of the character's thought. The story is told based on the continuous flow of the character's thoughts. The story is told based on the continuous flow of the character's thoughts. All right, the next one. Sorry? Themes. So you should be able to identify the point of view of the novel you are reading. All right? You pick up the novel you are reading and you can tell the point of view. Right? Simple. These things are not meant to be difficult. Life was not meant to be difficult. So themes. Themes refer to the central ideas that can be deduced from the story. Themes refer to the central ideas that can be deduced from the story. Stories are informed by ideas, and stories usually embody ideas. Stories are informed by ideas, and stories usually embody ideas. In other words, there is no story without an idea behind it. And so after reading the story, you need to isolate the important ideas in it. And these are the themes. These are the themes of the story. The messages that one can take from the story are themes. Themes are the messages that one can deduce from the story. The story could be about love, could be about jealousy, could be about war, could be about education, could be about corruption, could be about nepotism, could be about morality or otherwise. We have major themes and minor themes. Sometimes it might be necessary to segregate the themes into major and minor ones. Sometimes it might be necessary to segregate the themes into minor ones and major ones. There are minor themes and major themes. Major themes cut across the entire work. Major themes cut across the entire work. That means they are sustained throughout the work. Major themes are sustained throughout the work, or for the most part of the work. They tend to dominate the story. For instance, war is a major theme in Half of a Yellow Sun. Because that's what the novel is all about, from the beginning to the end. The entire novel is devoted to the war narrative. In such a novel, kindness could be a minor theme. Human kindness could be a minor theme. because that's not what the novel is all about. So minor themes occur occasionally in a work. It could even be once or twice. It's not the entire work, or for the most part of the work. We don't have such themes. The minor themes are subordinate themes in a work. They do not cut across the entire work. They do not take enough space in the narrative. Do not take much space in the narrative. So in any work you read, you should be able to identify the themes that are major and the ones that are minor. We also have timeless and universal themes. We also have timeless and universal themes. We also have timeless and universal themes. Timeless and universal themes. Timeless and universal. Timeless and universal themes. A theme is said to be timeless when it is relevant for all times, past, present, and future. A theme is said to be timeless when it is relevant for all times, past, present, and future. The theme was there in the past, it's still there now, and will always be there. That's timeless theme. Like love. Love is a timeless theme in literature. A theme is said to be universal. A theme is said to be universal when it appeals to all peoples everywhere on the earth, in the universe. A theme is said to be universal when it appeals to people everywhere in the universe. When it appeals to people everywhere in the universe, or when it appeals to all peoples everywhere in the universe. So love again is a timeless and universal theme. Love is a timeless and universal theme. Same as hatred, same as envy and jealousy. Same as rebellion. Because the great stories of the past have depicted these themes: love, hate, jealousy, rebellion. And contemporary stories still depict these themes: love, hate, rebellion, and so on and so forth. And future humans will continue to have these themes in their literature, but maybe in new dimensions. We may look at love between humans and robots in the future, but it still be love. Okay, same thing. Some themes are historical. Some themes are historical, and these are drawn from history, like slavery, the theme of slavery. These themes are specific to points in history, like colonialism, like slavery, and so on and so forth. The next item. So remember that it's not just enough for you to mention that there is a theme in a work. What is more important is for you to explain how that theme operates in the work. It's important for you to justify the presence of that theme. Don't just say there's a theme of love in the work. How is it depicted? How is it dramatized? How is it portrayed? That's more important. That is more important. Because in literature, we need the evidence. We need the evidence. You said there is personification in the work. Where is it? Show the evidence. Give us the example. So you have to justify it. That's more important than mentioning it. So what's the next item? Characterization. Characterization. So characterization is the act or the art of creating characters and assigning them roles in a work of art. Characterization is the art or the process of creating fictional personages in a work of art. These fictional personages are characters. Characters are imaginary beings who play roles in a work of art. Characters are imaginary beings who play roles in a work of art. It's difficult to tell a story without characters. It's almost impossible to tell a story without characters. There have to be people who make things happen in the work of art, or who things happen to in the work of art. Alright? So you need to understand that in some stories, some characters are subjects, while others are objects. Okay? The subjects characters are those who make things happen, and the object characters are those who things happen to. So because the writer usually creates a world, then he also needs to fill that world with people who act. So these people are characters. They are called characters because they have roles to play in a work of art. They are called characters because they have roles to play in a work of art. Just as people have different roles to play in real life. Some are teachers, some are doctors, some are farmers, some are engineers, some are politicians, some are students. The same thing with the work of art. People also have roles to play. And another thing about character is that he also talks about the moral constitution of the person. Character also speaks to the moral constitution of the individual. By that we refer to the character traits. The character traits of the individual. Is the person a good guy or a bad guy? Right? Is it a good guy or a bad guy? Because you see, in every story, we have the good guys and the bad guys. You can always take any story and say, in this story, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. Okay? So, the identification of a character usually begins with a name. The identification of the character usually begins with a name. So when you read a story, try to note the name of the character. Sometimes these names are significant, right? Sometimes you need to investigate the meaning of a name because it might have something to say about the character, but not all the time, sometimes. Alright? For instance, if someone is named Oyobio in the work of art, I mean that the person is very troublesome. Always causes, everywhere he goes, it causes trouble. Alright? Because of the name. There might be a reason the author has assigned that name to that character, so you might begin your investigation from there by looking at the meaning of the character's name. Okay? So 3 things usually come together to make a character. 3 things usually come together to make a character. The test of the character has to pass through these 3 things. Number 1, what the character says about himself. Number 1, what the character says about himself. Number 2, what others say about the character. Number 2, what others say about the character. And number 3, what the character does. And 3, what the character does. When you put all of this together, you can judge a character, but not until you have put all of this together. Right? So the test of the character has to pass through these 3. What the character says about himself or herself, what others say about the character, and the action of the character does. To discuss the character professionally and technically, we need to know the following character types. To discuss a character professionally and technically, we need to know the following character types. Not when we say discuss the character, you now start mentioning names and what the people are doing. They're telling us the type of the character. It's quite important that you tell us about the character type. Alright? Okay? There's need for you to know the types of the character. For instance, we have the major character and the minor character. We have the major character and the minor character. The major characters dominate the work of art, they dominate the story. The major character is known for dominance. They are everywhere in the story. They are seen from the beginning of the story through the end, or for the most part of the story. And they also take major action in the story. You can call them principal characters. Principal characters. call them principal characters. I call them important characters. I call them main characters. So in your talking about character, you need to know whether that character is a main character, whether it's a major character, or whether it's a minor character. It's important. Based on how you read the story, is this character a major character? You need to hear such expressions. Alright? That Oyobio is a major character. You don't call a major character, you call him a main character, a principal character. Because he dominates the story. He takes the major actions in the story. He's seen everywhere in the story. Right? The minor character appears occasionally. Maybe acts a particular role and then we don't see him again. The minor character appears occasionally. Does not dominate the story. Does not take major action in the story. The minor character appears occasionally. Does not dominate the story. Does not take major action in the story. As a minor character. So in every novel that you read, you should be able to identify which character is minor. Major characters are also called central characters. Major characters are also called central characters. Central characters. Then let us talk about hero and heroine. Hero and heroine. Hero is male, heroine is female. But there's nothing wrong in using hero to refer to the both genders. Hero is male, heroine is female. But there's nothing wrong in using hero to refer to the two genders. The hero of a work is so called because of exhibiting heroic attributes. The hero of the work is called so because he or she exhibits heroic attributes. Heroic attributes or traits like bravery, like courage, bravery, courage, self-sacrifice, selflessness, denying himself or herself for others, fighting for the weak and the less privileged, fighting for the weak, defending the weak, protecting the weak against the strong, against the strong person who is the bad guy who tries to torture the weak. So these are all attributes of a hero. He's brave, he's courageous, he's selfless, he defends the weak. Some give to the poor through self-denial. So do we have heroes in the house? Some of them have sacrificed themselves for the community. They die for the community. They die fighting to defend the community. These are heroes. All right? So, traditionally or conventionally, the hero is known for physical strength. The hero is known for physical strength, the display of physical courage, for instance, one person who is able to carry 2 drums full of water, 2 hands, 1 drum this way, 1 drum this way. It's a hero. It doesn't depict physical strength. I used to do this during the Civil War.
Yes, sir.
You know? So it's not a difficult thing. So you carry 1 drum in this hand and then another drum in this hand, full of water. These are heroes. Physical strength is important in understanding the traditional hero, the hero in the traditional sense. Or the person comes in contact with 100 soldiers against himself and defeats them all. Alright? He fights and kills all of them, and we're just wondering how was he able to do it? Killing 100 persons. Okay? But it's not magic, because we also used to do it during the Civil War.
Yes, sir.
Alright? So physical heroism is the traditional notion of heroism. So the traditional hero shows himself through physical heroism, super masculinity, doing things that ordinary people cannot do. Like if we say, how many of us will go and fight war in another village? Many people will run away because they don't want to die. But the hero will step forward. Alright? So the hero will step forward. Say, I'm going. By taking that decision, they know that they might die, but they are courageous. Heroes don't even fear death. They don't care. What they care about is serving the community. So do we still have heroes in the house?
Yes.
So heroes sacrifice themselves, sacrifice their life. Okay? For the common good. That's the traditional sense of the hero. In the traditional sense too, the hero is highly placed. The hero is a highly placed member of society. One that everyone looks up to. But in the modern sense of the hero, physical strength is not the emphasis. Physical strength is not the emphasis. Rather, moral strength is the emphasis. Virtues. Moral strength is the emphasis. Virtues are the emphasis. A generous spirit is the emphasis. Selflessness is the emphasis. Intellectual strength is emphasized in the modern sense of heroism. Self-control, self-restraint. Is heroic in the modern sense of the hero. And the modern hero is a common man. The modern hero is a common man. Not the person who is higher than you and I, but you and I. Alright? The modern hero is not the person who is higher than you and I, but you and I. So the legend is no longer the person who builds a school for the community, but rather the parent, the single parent, who sacrifices for the family. That's the hero now. The modern hero is not the rich politician who builds a school for the community, rather that single parent who sells newspapers to educate the children. The hero is also that person who is patient, who is loving, who is peaceful with his neighbors. That's a hero. Person who walks away from a fight. Person who walks away from a fight is a hero. Simple acts of kindness defines heroism in our days. Helping an old woman to carry a load. Sacrificing your time to help someone in need of the time. That's heroism in our time. And the modern work focuses on these simple, usually overlooked, hitherto overlooked gestures. Let's just look at, then we have anti-heroes, of course. Anti-heroes. Anti-hero. Anti-heroes are usually found in the modern novel. Anti-heroes are usually found in the modern novel. Anti-heroes are usually found in the modern novel. They are called anti-heroes because they are heroes, but they do not have the characteristic traits of heroes. They are heroes without heroic traits. They are heroes without the conventional heroic traits. They are anti-heroes because they are heroes without the traits of a hero. They will not behave like heroes because some of their actions are called into question. We wonder why they are heroes, they are anti-heroes. A character like Heathcliff, Heathcliff is an anti-hero. He's the hero, but we question his heroism because of his actions. When we align, when we compare his actions to what we know of a usual hero, a conventional hero, they fall short. So that's why Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights is an anti-hero, can be described as an anti-hero. Okay, so let us pause there for now and switch to the next course.